Thank you for tuning in to the Injustice Anywhere radio program. My name is Bruce Fisher. Injustice Anywhere is an all-volunteer organization working to correct wrongful convictions. Please visit our main website at injustice-anywhere.org to learn more about our organization. You can also Google Injustice Anywhere, and you should see us right there at the top of the page. When visiting our website, you will find links to Facebook and Twitter. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter in order to keep up to date with current events. This is our first show on Spreaker, our new internet radio home. Please bookmark our radio page. There's exciting new developments about the radio show that will happen in the near future. This is our first show, so we're just going to take it, one step at a time, so please be patient with us. Injustice Anywhere will broadcast live on Tuesday nights. All shows will be available on our radio station page after the live broadcasts. We will soon be adding podcasts from others that advocate for the wrongfully convicted as well, so stay tuned for announcements for new shows. We've had good news for our featured cases recently. I know we've been off the air for a few months, but two of our featured cases had excellent news in recent times. The first case is Deborah Milkey. On March 17th, the Arizona Supreme Court declined to review the appeal that freed Milkey. She will not face a new trial. She is free. Sadly, she spent 22 years on death row as an innocent woman. Hopefully, she can now begin to rebuild her life. Another case is one that started our entire organization, Amanda Knox and Rafael Solechito. They were fully exonerated on March 27th. There are secondary slander charges pending that will most likely be left to expire. Similar charges were filed against Amanda's parents during the first trial, and those charges they've already expired. Prosecutors use slander charges as scare tactics in Italy. It appears that they like to keep opinionated people quiet during their trials. Both Amanda and Rafael are currently facing slander charges for their books. Those charges look pretty silly now. The charges basically say, hey, we know that we wrongfully convicted you, but we are really unhappy with the way you talk about the people that attempted to completely destroy your lives. I seriously don't see any judge taking these charges seriously at this point. But either way, the charges will only result in a fine if trials do move forward. Of course, Amanda will not attend any future hearings that may or may not take place. She is home in the United States moving forward with her life. It will be unfortunate if Rafael has to be bothered with the slander charges that remain. We are hopeful they will be left to expire. You can learn more about this case at our websites, amandaknoxcase.com and injusticeinperusia.org. Tonight we will be discussing the Jamie Snow case with Tammy Alexander from the Committee to Free Jamie Snow. Jamie Snow is an Injustice Anywhere featured case. Jamie was wrongfully convicted in 2001 for the 1991 murder of William Little, a gas station attendant in Bloomington, Illinois, my home state. Jamie was home with his family when the crime occurred. He is currently serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole in Stateville Prison in Joliet, Illinois. Please visit freejamiesnow.com to learn more about Jamie's case. Hi, Tam. Welcome back to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're back. Now, we did a Blog Talk radio show on the Jamie Snow case last year that is available on our radio archive on our website. I also uploaded that show to our Spreaker page if people would like to listen to it there. But a lot has happened over the past year, so I'd like to get to that tonight. But I think it's a good idea to also provide an overview of the case for our new listeners that may be hearing about the case for the first time. Does that sound like a good plan?
Perfect.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about the murder, when it occurred, and what it entailed? What was the crime?
The crime was an armed robbery and murder of a gas station attendant that occurred in 1991. He was a young 18-year-old gas station attendant, and Jamie was arrested in 1999 for this crime.
So there was quite a delay.
Yeah.
Now, what was the scene when the officers arrived at this gas station where William Little was murdered? What was the scene they came upon?
Well, there was a gentleman pumping air into his tire. His house was right by the station, and there was a fence that separated it. And he was the only person on the scene when they came up. When the police officer approached on a silent alarm, he parked across the street behind a building, which was the credit union, and approached on foot. There was another officer that approached at the intersection of Empire and Linden, and he was also had his lights off and was approaching silently. Officer Pilo was the one that was on foot. He was the first one that was on the scene, and he was calling into his radio dispatch, trying to get the license plate of the person that was that was there in the car pumping air into his tires. And then he approached and saw a foot sticking out over the counter, and entered the store and tried to clear everything. And Officer Paul Williams, who was the one that was parked across the street, cleared the building, and they started ripping it off and stuff.
Now, who was the person that was in the car pumping the air in his tires?
His name was Danny Martinez. He would eventually become the star witness in the case.
Now, there were a few witnesses at the scene. Can we go over those witnesses at this time now, just to give an idea of who the police initially had?
Okay, so Danny Martinez, I guess, was the primary because he was the only one on the scene when they approached. I'm not sure exactly how to structure this. He basically, when he went to the police station that night, he picked out two people that were not Jamie Snow and said it's between these two. And another witness, who I'll get to in a second, was also also picked out one of those. We don't know how either one of these men were cleared. Over the years, I guess the next ID would be Danny Martinez stood in a lineup, and Jamie Snow was in that lineup, and he did not pick out Jamie Snow, but he asked two others to move forward. And in another ID, he later on, I think in '93, he did a photo array in which there were probably two photo arrays over the later times in which multiple pictures of Jamie Snow were included. We know that through testimony from one of the detectives, but we have not been able to obtain those photo arrays. But he said he testified in Susan Claycombe's trial, which I guess I'm going to have to back up, but we'll talk about that in a second. But
we'll get to Susan's trial as well.
Pardon?
We'll discuss Susan's trial because she was the co-defendant in the case.
She was the co-defendant in the case, and her trial was first. And Detective Crow testified in her trial that he had multiple pictures of Jamie Snow in a photo array, and did not two times, and did not pick out Martinez did not pick out Jamie Snow from those. When Susan Claycombe's trial, when they were arrested, Jamie Snow and Susan Claycombe, Susan's trial was first, and an investigator went out to talk to Danny Martinez, and he said that the people that were arrested were not the people that he saw. He said that the guy was not the person that he saw. And then 2 weeks later, he was pulled into the state's attorney's office. Nothing recorded, nothing written down, nothing. And he ID'd Jamie Snow from the 1991 lineup that he was present at 3 months after the crime. So he all of a sudden became the star witness. And to back up a little bit, he was also the one that he developed a composite, and they did not release his composite until like 3 years after, 3 years into the crime. So initially, they had released a composite from a gentleman named Gerardo Gutierrez, who said that he was, in the initial police reports, he said he was there about 10 minutes before the crime happened. And he pumped gas and he went in and he paid with dollar bills and some change. And he said that he walked in and there were two men by the attendant, and he described them. One was he said one of them turned his back to him, but the other one had a distinctive scar on his chin that was so distinctive that it has holes, from as if they would have taken stitches out. And he had an earring in his left ear, neither of which Jamie has ever had.
So he gave a pretty detailed description of a suspect that looked nothing like Jamie Snow.
He gave a very detailed description and also made a composite. And he said that he went home, he lived in the neighborhood, so he went home because, he said that the guy, William Little, Billy Little is what they, call him, and he was nervous. He was so nervous that he dropped his change. His hands were shaking so bad that he dropped his change, and that he wasn't talking to him like he had always talked to him, because he said he never said a word to him. And that first police report, he said he never said a word to him. So he went back home, and he said he heard about the shooting on the news or on the radio, I can't remember which it was, and he said he went right back to tell police what he had seen. And at that time, that's when they took him down and they did the composite, and they used his composite for about the first 3 years. I think it was about 93, or it might have been late 92 when they released that new composite.
Okay, and there was a third witness as well that lived across the street, correct?
Actually, there were two. It was a young man, about 14 years old, and his younger cousin, who I don't know exactly how old he was, but, he was younger, so he was younger than 14. And they said they were looking out the window from across the street, and it was, we've measured it now, so it was like 212 feet away, and that he was looking across the street to see if he could see the silhouette of his aunt, who worked over there as well, because if she was there, maybe they could go in and get some candy. And they said that they were, that they saw someone come out looked like they had something tucked under their jacket, in a longer coat, and went around the building. But an interesting aspect of that is that they did not see Danny Martinez's car, which they knew Danny, and they even testified. Well, not both of them, only one of them testified that he did not see Danny Martinez's car there, which would have been in his field of view if he was looking across the street.
Okay.
At the gas station. Does that make sense?
It does, but it contradicts Danny Martinez, correct?
Yeah, it does. Danny Martinez's story changed, substantially over the year. First, we just don't think that they took him seriously as a witness. First of all, for 2 years or more, they didn't use his composite.
Okay.
It looked completely different from Gutierrez's composite. When they interviewed the boys, the Luna boys, Carlos and Juan, the officer said that he couldn't. They didn't know enough to. They couldn't give enough features to even create a composite.
Now, during the initial investigation, they have vague vague witness reports here. How did Jamie Snow even add into the equation? How did his name come up?
I think his name came up very, very soon in the investigation. He was not a choir boy. Well, actually, he probably was a choir boy. but he was, he was not, he had been in trouble before as a juvenile, and they pretty much looked at him in that crowd, that he was around every time something happened. There was a whole string of robberies in Bloomington at that time, since they had been trying to solve them since like 1989, and they actually even had a task force on it. And they arrested, a lot of different people, for that rash of robberies. But Jamie was implicated. Somebody named him in a police report for the Freedom gas station robbery. And I think that's how he was dragged into it, which somebody else also confessed to that robbery.
So they were just looking at prior suspects in previous cases that were similar in the area?
Yes.
Now, Jamie's priors, they did not involve any violence of any kind. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So how long... Now, we went a long time before Jamie was arrested. What was the reasoning for that long period of time?
Well, it's interesting because now that we've gotten so much information from FOIA requests, we can see that they had like 600 leads in this case. It was a massive case. And, there were several that probably were much better suspects than what Jamie Snow was. There are indications throughout affidavits and throughout police reports that the victim's mother was putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the police department as well as the local news media to get this solved, and she should have. I think she should have.
Right. How many days? How long had it been?
Indications at that time. It's interesting because there was a seasoned detective, Charlie Crow, who was on this case until he retired in 1997. And now through FOIA, we have found numerous leads where he has said, if there was, if it was a lead with Jamie Snow, because that was a big rumor, he said he's been cleared. He passed the polygraph. He stood in the lineup. Nobody ID'd him. He was just like cleared. That's something that we hadn't seen before.
Right. How far into the investigation was it?
He would have arrested him. I know he would have arrested him if he thought that he did it. When he retired, there were two officers, two detectives. They were rookie detectives that took over the case. And, they have, at least one of them has a record of misconduct through the courts.
During the initial investigation in the first days, how long was it before they brought in Jamie for questioning?
Well, they arrested him for the Freedom robbery that I mentioned early on. The crime happened in March 31. It was on Easter Sunday in 1991, and Jamie was arrested for that in the late April, I think. And then he stood in the lineup in June. So he was sitting in jail on that case when they put him in the lineup for this case.
Okay, so how long had that been? You're going...
That was within he was arrested for the Freedom robbery within a month.
Within a month.
Time.
Okay.
Because that Freedom robbery had happened prior to this one. That had happened in February.
Now, on the night of the murder, Jamie claims that he was home with his family. Was his family questioned by police?
That's a good question. His wife was, but his kids were babies.
They were all too young.
Yeah. He had, I think, 2 at the time, and they were toddlers. maybe 3.
Now, he was cleared on the other robbery, the Freedom gas station, and
Right.
they decided at that time they just didn't have enough to pin this case on him?
Right. Nor the Freedom robbery. He was released due to lack of evidence.
On the Freedom robbery
case.
and this one. So then years went
He was
by.
not arrested for this crime.
Right, he was just questioned.
Yeah.
And then how far was it after that he did the lie detector test?
Because some people, these two cases are unfortunately very intertwined. So what a police officer is saying is, they were asking him about all of this stuff, the whole rash of robberies. And they used the questioning in this, but they were never distinctively questioning him about this particular robbery.
Okay. So when was it that he gave the lie detector test?
He gave a polygraph in 1993 or 4. 1994.
Now, how did that come about?
He was, I think, they were after him for the Freedom robbery. They said he had something to do with it still. And he knew he didn't do that robbery, but he went back and but he also knew that they were after him for a homicide.
Right.
And he talked to them and he said, look, and it was with Detective Crow, and he said, I'll take, on this crime, I'll take an obstruction of justice because he had knowledge of who committed that crime and was not, forthcoming with police. And he said, I'll do an obstruction of justice and I'll take a polygraph on this William Little murder, and then will you leave me alone about it?
So he was just trying to put it behind him.
Yep.
And he passed.
Yep. He passed.
Now, what was he doing in the time from that time until the time of his arrest for this case, and how did his arrest come forth? I know that you mentioned there was 2 new detectives that took the case. Right,
they took the case in 97.
So from that time, from the polygraph until 97, what was Jamie Snow doing?
Well, he was in prison on that obstruction of justice charge, and I can't remember if that was 1.5 years or 3 years.
Okay.
And when he was paroled, he paroled, I don't know if it was to Missouri or Florida, but he landed up in Florida, and he started working for a tree service and then started his own business down there and got a house and got his kids down there and his family. And
so his family moved to Florida with the new job, and he was basically rebuilt his life, or in the process of rebuilding his life.
Right.
Now, did he have any notice at all from an attorney or anybody that was keeping track of what was going on back up in Illinois that he was still on the radar for this case?
Yeah, I think there were rumors. He definitely rumors. He had actually allowed some of the people from Bloomington to come down and stay with him, and got him jobs, and so there was a lot of contact between him and Bloomington people, and his wife also called him, I think, and told him that he was getting indicted. He called an attorney, and he said, what do I need to do here? And he just said, get ready because they can indict a ham sandwich.
So they knew what was coming at that point.
Yeah.
Now, oddly, at the same time, they brought Susan Claycomb into the picture, and she became a co-defendant. How did all that transpire?
I don't know. That was interesting because Susan Claycomb was his sister-in-law. Just a beloved aunt, and very close to his wife, Tammy Snow. And, but as I understand it, Jamie and Susan didn't get along well at all. And, they wouldn't, have a cup of coffee together, much less do a crime together, which is just crazy,
How did the police put it together that those two decided to get together to go rob a gas station?
There was a lot of muddiness, I think, with the Freedom robbery. I think that they used that. There was a lot of rumors about a female driving, and I think that's how she got involved. I mean, I speculate, which they have no proof at all, but I think that they involved her to testify against Jamie.
Okay, but that didn't work out so well. She went to trial separately from Jamie to defend herself, and she won.
Yeah, well, they tried multiple times to get her to testify against Jamie. Unfortunately, she's passed away.
Right. I know you provide information on freejamiesnow.com, and you recently posted a video of her discussing the case as well. So I recommend that our listeners go to freejamiesnow.com to learn more about Susan Claycomb. It is unfortunate that she has passed away, but it seems like she was really an upstanding human being on this case because she refused to testify against Jamie because she knew what the truth was.
Yeah, that's and interesting. I talked to her for a while about that, and she agreed to do that video in a parking garage.
I saw that.
I happened to run into her in Bloomington, and I think she I don't know. I always felt like she had survivor guilt. Like that could be me.
Now, if she would have taken a deal from the prosecution and testified against Jamie, chances are she never would have went to trial.
Right.
Now,
Jamie always says, we didn't get along, but she ended up being my hero because he had so many jailhouse informants lying on him.
And she was pregnant at the time, correct?
She was pregnant. She was released. They let her out to have her baby and then put her back in. She took a huge risk to tell the truth. I don't know.
I think it's very telling. You have a woman who's under an unbelievable amount of pressure. She's pregnant, so she has the well-being of her own child to deal with at the same time, yet she refuses to be overcome by the pressure of the prosecution, and she takes them to trial, and she wins. Now,
that's pretty amazing.
How is she able to win against the charges against her, and Jamie, his case obviously went in the other direction?
Well, she had an excellent private attorney, Steve Skelton. He's well known in Bloomington and in the local area, and he took it apart. The difference between the two trials, if you read any of the transcripts, they're like night and day. The way you can't question Danny Martinez, the evidence that he brought out, and he actually brought all of the evidence out, and I bet not half of it was used in Jamie's trial.
Now, why didn't the prosecution try to try them together? How did they manage to get separate trials?
I have no idea.
Was that something that you don't know if it was Susan Claycomb's attorneys that made that possible, or if it was the prosecution's decision?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But I do know that in Susan's trial, Jamie was basically on trial because what they were saying was Jamie was a shooter, and they had to prove that. And it didn't happen. They just could not prove it with an excellent defense.
Now, during Jamie's questioning throughout, did he have a public defender present, or was he questioned quite a bit all by himself?
I know that he didn't, because I know that he told me that he never talked to Katz or Barkus or anything. He just refused to talk to him. I know that he said over the years that he talked to Crow several times, and I don't know that it was in a formal way either.
Now that's the initial detective that retired.
Yeah, that's the one that retired.
Okay, but he spoke to him multiple times without an attorney present.
Yeah.
And he was
Crow is the one that convinced him to take the polygraph.
And Crow concluded he was innocent.
Yeah. Well, he told him, Jamie said after he took that polygraph, he said, I don't think you did this, but I think you know who did. And Jamie said, I don't know who did it. I would tell you if I knew who did it.
Right. Oh, so Detective Crow left the door open a little bit there by thinking that Jamie may have known who did it. Similar to... Most likely he had that feelings because of the Freedom robbery.
Right.
He just used the prior charges to come up with that idea, most likely. Now, the new detectives were Dan Katz and Rick Barks. Is that correct? Barkus. Now, they took over the case, which was a cold case at that point.
Right.
And their investigation is what really, truly led to Jamie being arrested in 1999. How did they build a case? What was it that they used to build their case that led to the arrest?
Well, if you look at news reports, when that happened, when they were arrested, they said, the case was revitalized from this huge lead from Florida, and we still haven't found out what that lead was.
And that was never brought up at trial?
No. That's what they said, but they've never, news reports we know are different than, what happens at trial. But there was never any explanation because there was no more evidence aside from Danny Martinez IDing him and jailhouse informants that came up in the 11th hour.
Now, these jailhouse informants were the result of the investigation by these two new detectives, correct?
Yes.
None of these informants were on the radar or discussed in Detective Crow's investigation.
No, I think that there were hints of them. I think what they did was went back to the case and started looking at everybody that may have ever been in jail with Jamie or in prison with Jamie, because there are numerous reports of, literally, Katz was getting every single person that had ever visited or been in prison at the same time, and it was down to details like they were there for these few weeks. They were there for these, whatever. And, it's pretty detailed, in the case that they were trying to nail that down.
Now, how did they get Danny Martinez to become the star witness? What was it that they did that turned things around in their favor with him?
That's the million-dollar question. What did they do? We don't know, because that's the only interview that we know of with Danny Martinez that was not documented. It was not documented. It was not recorded. They just brought him in there, and he had only, I think he went in there in July, February, March. So like three months prior, in 1999, he had an interview with them, and but that's what it sounds like, when you listen to it, because there's some language there, like, did he look like this person? Or something like that. Something's happening there.
And he had multiple times. Well, you need to go over this again real quick. He had multiple times over the years to be given the opportunity to identify Jamie, and he just couldn't do it.
No. And the point is that he did not. Not only did he not ID him, he said Jamie Snow was not who he saw.
So he just came out and stated that it wasn't Jamie.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, if we want to bring it up to the new appeal, the hearings, that's what we found. So when Jamie took that polygraph in 1993 or 94, whichever it was, we FOIA'd for that along with, other information. But one of the items that we have is a polygraph where it has, we got the entire polygraph, the whole worksheet and everything, right? And there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. For example, Tina Griffin was the assistant state's attorney at the time, and she's the one that prosecuted Jamie. And she said in trial that, why is Jamie Snow, she said the truth never changes, and then why is Jamie Snow changing his story? But it actually says in the notes, Jamie Snow said he was with his family, and can anybody corroborate that? No, I just had my kids and my wife. And, so he said where he was way back in 93.
Right.
The other issue is it appears as if the polygrapher is getting information from somebody from the state, right? So it's like his notes. And he says specifically there was a man airing up, this witness, he uses W, witness was airing up his tires at the gas station when the crime occurred. He says this is not the person he saw. That's what he said. See, that's not something that we ever saw before.
Right, and that wasn't included in the trial.
Right. It was not ever turned over to Jamie. The first time we saw it was when we got the FOIA request from the Illinois State Police.
Now,
so that's where we got the polygraph.
Okay. Now, Jamie's attorneys made no attempt to discover this information, or this was completely withheld from them?
Completely withheld. Completely withheld.
So you're dealing with Brady violations.
See, you have to understand that Jamie went pro se in 2004, and he got all of his discovery. So he's never seen this before.
Right. He began his own investigation at that point.
Right. Well, he began it way before that.
Well, he took it on himself, right?
Yeah.
We didn't really get into his attorney during the first trial, during his trial.
Yeah.
His attorney,
that's a whole, I've never been a conspiracy theorist. I'm very practical and pragmatic. You have to have proof. And, I'm not particularly prone to that kind of stuff. But, what happened was he had, Amy Davis she was over the public defender's office. And when Jamie got arrested, she was over the case. And she said, I have no idea how you even got indicted on this. And she said, we're going to go through and she said, all of these people are just popping up. Like, people just don't come out of the blue. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this case file and we're going to investigate and we're going to talk to every single person in this case. So she went to the state, to the judge, and asked for money, to do the investigation. And she was very clear about how she was going to talk to everybody in this case and blah, 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 blah. And the next thing you know, there's a motion to get her off the case from McLean County State's Attorney's Office, which at the time the State's Attorney was Charles Renard, who was very involved in this case. So they got Amy off the case because there was a jailhouse informant, Ed Palumbo, that she defended like 10 years earlier. And, you know, it's a great motion because she really fought to stay on this case. And, but they denied it. They took her off the case. Then they said, well, you can't, you know, you're over the PD office, so nobody from the public defender's office can represent Jamie because you're, you know, I don't know what they call him, but, you know, the person that's the public defender who's over everybody. And so they took the whole PD office off the case. And then they said that they were maybe not going for the death penalty in this case. So they had to get somebody that was qualified to, you know, represent somebody on a death penalty case. So they got a man called Pitzel, which everybody calls him Pickle, Frank Pickle, and Riley. And I don't remember Riley's first name.
And they were considered qualified to cover death penalty cases.
Right. And Riley had a stroke and was not in very good health at all. And as it turns out, Pickle had been had a serious gambling problem and alcoholism, and we didn't know till later in his sentencing hearing when he went to prison for bilking an elderly woman of her life savings because he was the power of attorney over her to support his gambling habit, that he had all of these problems. So, Jamie tried to get them off the case, and he did express, you know, they have what they call a Krenkel hearing, and he tried to express things like I can smell alcohol on his breath. He's not investigating these people that I'm giving him, you know, lists for. You know, when the prosecution arrested, you know, he kind of brought the witness list in front of him and said, okay, well, what is this person going to say? What is this person going to say? You know, and Jamie just kind of lost his mind at that point.
Piesel was asking him questions he should have known himself.
Yes. And he didn't lay the foundation for many of the witnesses that were in Susan's trial, although he got paid like thousands of dollars to sit in on Susan's
So that's
trial.
my question. Susan Claycomb was acquitted. Mm-hmm. Why wasn't the information that was used to acquit Susan Claycomb used in Jamie's trial by Jamie's attorney to attempt to obviously end with the same result?
Well, it should have been. I mean, it should have been. It absolutely should have been. You know, for example, he didn't lay the foundation for Detective Sanders, and Detective Sanders was saying that the Luna boys did not, they couldn't make a good enough ID for them to even create a composite. He was the sketch artist. I mean, he was the one that was doing that work. And he didn't testify. Foster, the Detective Foster in Susan's trial, he didn't lay the foundation for him to testify. He's the one that told Martinez that testified that Martinez didn't, you know, that wasn't the person that he saw, you know, even after they were arrested.
Okay. Now, to simplify this...
There are lots of instances of that.
To simplify this, they didn't have enough to make an arrest. Then Katz and Barkas came in to build the case. Now, they had Martinez now because Martinez all of a sudden was able to identify Jamie. But that wasn't all they had. They also went to jailhouses, the prisons where Jamie had spent time, and they built up a list of witnesses using jailhouse snitches. Now, those snitches were only used against Jamie, correct? They weren't part of Claycomb's case in her trial.
I think there may have been a couple that were in Claycomb's trial.
Okay, but most were stacked against Jamie, isn't that correct?
Yes.
So it would have been his attorney's job to investigate these witnesses.
Yeah.
And he didn't do any of that.
No.
And now the investigation, just to try to bring it up to speed, the investigation after Jamie's conviction into all of these people and into the witness list that was compiled by these two investigators, Katz and Barkas. Those investigations have now led to the information that we'll be hearing at this new hearing coming up.
Yes, well, some of it. I mean, this is an appellate hearing on a successive post-conviction petition that was filed and went up to the appellate court. So we have previously filed a post-conviction petition, that had numerous affidavits of people that either changed their trial testimony or informants who said that they lied.
This was from the list of informants that they put together. And after a proper investigation on these people, you started to get people recanting and changing their stories and backing off their initial statements.
Correct.
Okay. So that had already been filed in the past.
Right. And that was that. And the last time we were in appellate court, they said, they said the witnesses weren't credible.
Okay. So what was new now? What has been acquired now that is new information that the court can now hear?
Well, it'll be interesting because, one of the things, excuse me, one of the things is the polygraph worksheet. So that will be the first time the appellate court is going to see the polygraph worksheet where he says that wasn't the person I saw. So what the state is trying to argue is that, number one, they're questioning whether the 28-year-old male suspect that they're talking about that took the polygraph on the same date that Jamie took his polygraph, and his name is on the polygraph, was actually Jamie Snow. That's the first thing that they said. Then they said, so if we concede that we're going to assume that this is Jamie Snow that's the subject of the polygraph, that what he's saying was that's not, he's saying, how did they put it? It's a shorthand way of explaining that Martinez did not identify the defendant in 1991. That's what it's just a shorthand way of saying, that wasn't that person that he saw in the lineup or any of the photo arrays. But it specifically says, witness says this is not the person he saw. And it's a critical distinction because...
How was Martinez discredited in the Claycomb trial?
Wow. I'll have to send you I'll have to send you that testimony because, it was great because, Stelton was doing the whole, okay, so it's dark and this person is walking up to you but he's got a hat on and the shadow is going to be across his face. And you said he had a short jacket on, but the other guy said that he had a long jacket on. And he's just a very good. He was he knew the details of that bogus ID. But I mean,
is that testimony available on freejamiesnow.com?
I don't know if I have it up or not.
Because if he was discredited at the Claycomb trial, then why wasn't he discredited at Jamie's trial? Yeah, it was brilliant. But,
also what we haven't talked about is the first officer that arrived on the scene, who also went to prison later. But at the time that he arrived on the scene, he was a rookie patrol officer, and he was, in 2000, by the time he testified, he was the police officer of the year. So what he testified to, that when he was talking on his radio, he got all confused and everything. But when I refer to the March to the March interview with Martinez, there was also one within 2 days with Pilo. And Pilo was saying exactly what was happening. So what Martinez ended up testifying to, if you can visualize this, there's a clear view of the gas station. Pilo is standing across the street. He's looking at the car. And what Pilo says in that interview was that Martinez walked towards the gas station, turned around like he was walking back towards his car, turned back around, and then turned back around like he's just kind of like he's indecisive about which way to go, and gets back in his car and leaves. Which, there's a whole other discussion about why he would have ever let him leave.
Right.
But in Martinez's testimony, by the time he testified, he said that he was, that at that very moment that Pilo was watching him, and they were asking him in that police report, well, was he 15 feet from the store? Was he about halfway from the store before he turned around? And that's a critical point because, and what really cinched the case for me was when Martinez says that he was it changes over the years, but, at first it was 3 feet from the suspect, face to face. So what Pilo said was that what Martinez said was that he got up to go towards the store and thought his car was dying, turned around, and then decided it wasn't dying, turned back around, and he was face to face with the suspect. And by the time he testified, which he never said anything about his eyes, he said, I will never forget his eyes. He looked like he had been up drinking all night and partying and doing drugs. It's absurd.
Right.
So if Pilo was standing across the street and Officer Williams was at that intersection, you have full view of that entire gas station. They were was in there.
Yeah, you just cut out there for about 10 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. So if the Pilo was across the street on foot and Officer Williams was at the intersection, there's full view of the store. And all they were doing was watching that door to see if somebody came out because they didn't know if there was a robbery in progress.
And neither one of them saw Martinez come face to face with any suspect.
No, but Pilo sure did see him turn around and do all that stuff. He could not have seen Martinez do that turnaround thingy without seeing another person there.
Right.
Because of the field of view.
He had a good view of the parking lot. And there's, according to his testimony, Martinez never came face to face with anybody.
No, he never said. And they both said, Williams and Pilo, they never saw anybody come out of that store ever.
So both of the officers on the scene contradict Martinez's statements.
Yes.
So we have the mystery of why Martinez changed his tune and became a prosecution's witness. Unlike the jailhouse snitches, which we can briefly get into, because a lot of them allegedly receive deals and they make deals with, to try to get time off and things like that. What was the motivation for Martinez?
I don't know, but we don't know. We don't know any facts, right? We can just speculate.
His actions alone discredit him because he could not identify Jamie early on. He had multiple attempts to do so. Then he said that it wasn't Jamie. And the police officers at the scene contradict what he said. The scene that Martinez describes just didn't happen, according to the two officers.
Right. So
what is his motivation? Is he just trying to help the prosecution? Does he feel like he's doing the right thing? Is it one of these things where he's trying to be a hero? Do we have any idea, or is it all speculation?
It's, I don't even want to speculate because that would just be speculation. And
exactly what I mean is there any?
We deal in facts.
There are no facts that that can be attributed to Martinez and why he's doing what he's doing?
No, none at all.
Has there been any attempt to contact him or anybody outside of the prosecution to have a discussion with him?
Ever since he was put on the prosecution witness list, the only response that he ever gives is talk to the state's attorney.
So he doesn't want to talk?
No.
So in the new appeal, so now we've come up to this point now. Mm-hmm. In the new appeal, it does mention Martinez. How about all these jailhouse snitches? You said a whole bunch of them had already recanted or changed their stories over the years. Mm-hmm. What new information do we have on them?
Well, we only have two, but I just wanted to touch on another issue that the state is claiming in the appeal, in their argument on the appeal, and that's that this wasn't an eyewitness ID case. They're saying that Martinez wasn't a critical witness and that it wasn't a witness ID case.
So they're putting the weight of their investigation, the weight of their evidence on these jailhouse snitches?
No, they're putting it on Luna, who, and just to backtrack here and make sure that we're transparent, Luna is the only one, the 14-year-old boy, who picked Jamie out of the lineup.
This is the boy that lived across the street that wanted to go across the street and get some candy.
Yeah. But he wasn't definitive. I mean, if you think about it, I've taken a picture from 212 feet away in broad daylight. You can't tell who's what over there.
The attention only shifted to him now that Martinez has become a questionable.
Sure. But what he said, what Luna said was, I closed my eyes and imagined all of them doing it, and he looked like the person I saw. That was his ID, which that is not an ID.
No, that's not an ID.
Not a positive ID. He has since recanted, just to make that clear as well.
So their whole case is based on a witness at 14 who is now an adult that has recanted.
Yes, that's what they're saying. They're saying that his ID was critical.
It appears that the shift here also, in their own way, they're also starting to discredit their own star witness, Martinez. If they had any faith in him, why would they shift direction?
Well, what's interesting is that was brought up in our group, that the case is being rewritten. So, and this isn't the first time we've seen this, right?
No, we see this a lot.
Yeah. In the Juan Rivera case, after the DNA matched someone else, he's going on his third trial, and they're changing their story. Well, Juan killed her, but somebody else had sex with her. This 11-year-old child,
right?
Because she was promiscuous. This is not unusual for them to try to do that. So that, what we need to do is stick with the testimony, the original testimony.
Sure. We're seeing that now in the Jeff Havard case, too. The prosecution's star witness has been discredited. So now they're saying, well, he wasn't even a big part of the case. He was their only expert. He was their only expert. But they always just try to rewrite history and rewrite the case because it's a stall tactic, for one, but it can drag things on for years and years and years, which is unfortunate.
Right. It is.
So where do we stand now with this new hearing coming up?
Okay. Well, we have three issues, three primary issues, and I'm not going to get into the other issues that are legal and better talked about from an attorney. But the three evidentiary issues are the polygraph, which we've talked about, and we have two other polygraphs that we also obtained from FOIA requests. We initially during the trial, they had these two polygraphs, and they did not give the results. It was just like blanked out during the results. But finally, we got the results of those. Both of these were jailhouse informants, and both of them failed. The first jailhouse informant, we have a real problem, with a lot of, issues with this informant, because that's Bruce Rowland, who we also got the letters from that we haven't been able to get in yet, and they won't be heard at this hearing. But, I guess I want to first say that these people were in trouble, and I'm not defending what they did, but I do know that there was a tremendous amount of pressure put on them to to testify to what they testified to.
You're speaking of the jailhouse snitches solely here.
Yeah, I'm talking about as far as I know. But what if they didn't do that? If they did that kind of pressure on these people, then why wouldn't they pressure other people?
Right.
So that's another speculation, right? But we got the results from Bruce Rowland, who had failed the polygraph. And in addition to that, we have an affidavit from his ex-wife who confirmed that Rowland received a deal. And she said that he admitted after that he was so guilt-ridden that he admitted afterwards that he did do that, but he did it to save his family. He had multiple DUIs. He was looking at felony DUI. He got a DUI, and then day after he got the DUI, he got an attorney and went to Katz and asked for a deal. Okay? So you wouldn't believe the favors they gave him, right? He had already had 4 or 5 DUIs under his belt.
Right.
They actually let him out on bond. They let him go to another state. You just don't do this.
And he's still considered a credible witness in the file today.
Yeah, and while he was out on bond, he got another DUI.
Now, how many of these witnesses need to be exposed before Jamie's granted a new trial? Where's the threshold here? They look at each individual witness and say, well, he wouldn't have changed the outcome of the trial. And then they look at the other witnesses individually, and they say, well, he wouldn't have changed the outcome of the trial. But when do they take them all and lump them into one big picture and say, wait a minute, if we look at all this together, of course this would have changed the outcome of the trial?
And that's what the Illinois state statute says. That's what the post-conviction statute says, is you have to take these. You see, what people don't understand is on the stand.
And you cut out again. I don't know why that's happening, but you cut out again for about 6 seconds.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. They've never, ever had an evidentiary hearing in this case. Ever. In 15 years, he has never gotten an evidentiary hearing. And the Illinois post-conviction statute says that you have to vet this evidence. In other words, even if it's an affidavit, you have to take it as truth, because that witness needs to sit in front of a judge. And Jamie being represented by the Exoneration Project. So when we have somebody like that questioning the witnesses and going through this, that's what we need.
Now, how come none of these witnesses in the past, in any of the motions that have been filed, have triggered an evidentiary hearing? What has been the reasoning?
Well, the last appellate, it's very thin. They're just saying that, prior to this type of evidence, they've had primarily affidavits, numerous though, like 17.
Right.
People who have changed their testimony or said or completely recanted. They just said they're not credible. That's all they're saying. Is
and they've looked at them individually.
Well, a lot of, yeah, and you're not supposed to. You're supposed to look at it cumulatively.
Because this entire case is built on the witnesses. There's absolutely no evidence. We need to make that clear. There's no evidence whatsoever at the scene linking Jamie Snow to this crime. There's absolutely nothing at the scene. So the entire case against Jamie Snow is built on these witnesses. So if you discredit multiple witnesses that testified, I'm just baffled that that would not trigger an evidentiary hearing.
It's very, I mean, I don't know how it is in other counties, but I know it's very difficult in McLean County to get an evidentiary hearing. I don't know why, because that, to me, it goes against the statute. It goes against the Illinois post-conviction statute, which says that you have to look at even affidavits as truth. They're saying, each one they are trying to take it piece by piece, one thing at a time.
Sure, it's much easier to argue that way.
Exactly. But you're supposed to look at it cumulatively, which is bizarre. I mean, Steve Shield is the other polygraph. We found out he failed it. He failed it. We've already gotten 2 affidavits from him. I mean, he was a sex offender, and he said that with both of the investigators that went and actually gave affidavits, he was breaking down and crying. He said that they put so much pressure on him. For example, where they were going to put him in prison. Which prison they were going to put him in, telling him all kinds of stuff, and he wouldn't sign an affidavit. The investigators signed one, but I know that our most recent investigator talked to him for a few hours, and then he went back into a room. He said he was going to sign an affidavit, and he went back to a room with his wife. And came back out and said that, he would talk to them tomorrow, and they never answered.
So there's just a lot of fear there.
Yeah, he's a sex offender. He's like, what else are they going to do to me?
Right. So in this new appeal, there's 2 of these jailhouse snitches that have provided affidavits?
Mm-hmm. No, we have the polygraphs.
You have their failed polygraphs.
Failed polygraphs. Previously, we submitted 2 affidavits from investigators from Steve Shield because he would not sign one.
Now, how is it made possible? How were they given polygraph tests? How did that come about? Was that voluntary?
I guess so, because there's a form that says, they're voluntarily doing this.
But then they stopped short of providing affidavits.
Well, they gave them polygraphs in the case.
Oh, that was during the trial.
Yeah, but they never turned the polygraphs over to us.
Okay, so now we're talking that this happened back during the trial.
They withheld evidence that witnesses were lying.
These aren't witnesses coming forward now recanting. This has actually happened during the trial. They were given polygraphs and failed, and that information was withheld from the defense.
Before the trial.
Right, during the investigation, and that was withheld from the defense.
Right.
So we have Brady violations.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we definitely have Brady violations.
Okay, but neither one of those witnesses have come forward after trial to offer any statements saying that they want to recant.
No.
Well, like you said, they're trying to get on with their lives. They have a bad history. There is fear there.
There is fear. They know what can happen.
Now, what is the date of this appellate hearing?
I mean, I don't think anything bad could happen. Those people are gone.
But it's hard to tell people that once they spend time in prison. They're free now. They don't want to be bothered. I get that. Not everybody's a Susan Claycomb. Not everybody's going to stand up and do the right thing, even if they don't have a bad history. A lot of people just want to be left alone. Now, you take a guy that had a bad life and he's spent time in prison and he's finally free. I can understand why he doesn't want to get involved. I'll be honest.
Can you understand why they would allow someone to serve a life without parole sentence after they've been in prison for years?
No, I can't. Like I said,
testimony?
Not everybody's a stand-up person. I mean, not everybody's good in this world. That's the basic conclusion that I draw from people not coming forward. I wish it was different.
I mean, I understand the initial pressure, definitely.
Well, like you said, the one man, he was living with incredible guilt over what he did.
Right. Well, apparently both of them, had issues with it.
Right. Now, what is the date of this appellate hearing?
That, I believe it's May 12th.
Okay.
I've got it up on
now, there was
Facebook.
also, I mentioned that there was absolutely no evidence at the scene whatsoever, nothing that implicates Jamie. There was motions filed to have evidence at the scene tested. What is the current status of that?
Well, we have a DNA motion, and it is sitting there right now. Nothing has moved forward. We had an issue we've had two assistant state's attorneys during this case that have become judges. So when they've been appointed judges, somebody else has to get caught up in the case. We had a judge retire, so somebody else has to take over that position. So we're kind of waiting to get back, the traction for that. But the DNA motion is to test ballistics, because there was no gun found and no bullet casings found. All we have are the two bullets that were inside the body of the victim. We would like those run through the FBI ballistics database to see if there's a match to a weapon or any casings in other crimes. The other issue is fingerprints. Now they can, again, through FOIA requests, we've realized that there weren't 9 fingerprints. There were like 26 fingerprints.
So there's 26 fingerprints.
Yeah. So we're trying.
Many haven't been tested, or none of them have been tested.
The initial ones were tested.
Just the 9.
And Jamie didn't match the ones that were usable. But now we can test DNA from smudges.
Right.
And that's what we would like. We think that there was a struggle. There was a stool knocked over. There were multiple no sales on the register. So we think that there were signs of a struggle. We would like his clothes tested for touch DNA to see if anything comes up there. And that's the DNA motion that we have before the court.
Right. I mean, Jamie knows he wasn't there, so nothing in the investigation should be a worry at all. The only thing they could find is something to exonerate.
Yeah,
These are defense motions trying to find out, to get these things tested. The prosecution made no effort to do this test.
Right.
Actually, the touch DNA wasn't even available at the time of trial, was it?
And that's the also in the post-conviction statute, as far as the DNA testing. And Patrick Persley got the ballistics included in the DNA testing from prison, by the way. And he's still not out, but his bullets didn't match them. He's also in Stateville with Jamie. But his was the first case where they did the ballistics DNA testing. They denied Jamie's ballistic DNA testing previously, but we're still fighting.
What was their reason for denial?
They're saying if somebody else committed the crime, even if it matched another crime, that doesn't mean that Jamie didn't get the gun at a later time and use it.
So they just danced around it and it worked.
Yeah, that's what they do every time.
Would there be any benefit to having Luna speak out, be outspoken about this case at this time?
Yeah, I think anybody that would speak up, and
because he has since recanted. Has there been any effort to have him speak?
No, because we don't want to. I mean, when witnesses are talked to, they're talked to by an investigator and go through the proper channels. We're not here to pressure anybody to come forward. As far as, to pressure any witnesses or anything like that.
Right.
That could not
Some
be
people
good.
might want to come forward. They just don't know the avenue to take.
I know. And you really want them to know the information. Alternatively, you certainly don't want them to feel any pressure to come forward,
Right. I wonder if he knows that he's now their main witness.
I don't know.
He might be surprised to find out if he doesn't know already.
That's
But
crazy. I don't understand. And so you can see a jailhouse informant who has maybe has something to lose by looking, bad or whatever it is, by not doing the right thing.
Right.
But what about these people who aren't in trouble?
Right. Well, he recanted.
Yeah.
So he might not even know that the current position for the prosecution for the state is that he was their main witness. I mean, who would notify him of those things?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose you just have to look up.
It's just an interesting thing that was brought up that I think should probably be brought into the spotlight, because I doubt he even knows that the prosecution's position is what it is today.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy, huh?
Now, what can people do to help? People that are listening, what can they do to help Jamie Snow?
Well, I'm going to mute. I know I wrote this down when I was talking to you. So I'll put it on the top of the page. First of all, if you have any information about this case, you can call 888-815-9299. And that's a tip line. You can leave your information anonymously. If you have any information about this case, please feel free to leave it. We're having the May 12th hearings in Springfield at the Appellate Court, and I don't know the address offhand. Anybody that can come to show their support for Jamie, that would make it, that always makes a difference. And their support for Tara Thompson at the Exoneration Project. She's his attorney. She's going to be there on his behalf arguing his case. And we need to show support, for everybody that's working hard on this case. I also want to let everybody know that I'm doing we've got a significant amount of information that is exculpatory from FOIA requests. So I'm going to be doing a workshop in D.C. for the Innocence Summit for the Center for Prosecutorial Integrity, and that's going to be in June, and I don't remember the exact date, but it's mid-June. And you can look that up on CPI. You can just Google CPI Innocence Summit. And Mara Leverett's going to be there, and it's going to be it looks like it's going to be I've never been there before, but it looks like it's going to be a great event with just a lot of really, really good information focused on misconduct from the prosecutor.
That's good to hear. And you're going to focus your efforts on this case at that event.
Yeah, I will definitely highlight this case. But any questions that anybody has about anything else, I'm certainly more well versed on public access information in Illinois. But
you've done an outstanding job of acquiring information on this case. Many people can learn a lot from what you've done with your just tireless efforts to obtain information on this case. I learned a lot just hearing the roadblocks you have to go through just to get information that's supposed to be public.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what we'll be talking about, is how to, how to pursue FOIA requests, as well as, databases that give you public information about your prosecutor. I think the title is Know Your Prosecutor.
Sure.
We found 5 other cases that are very, very questionable. And two of them are being represented by people from Innocence Projects in that county by that same, by Charles Renard, who's now a judge. So I strongly feel like, that's the Barton McNeil case, and I can't remember the other one. They're going to kill me. But, I strongly feel like this is another Lake County. I think that they vigorously pursued prosecutions at whatever cost.
Which is unfortunate,
I
but it's
feel that way.
exposing it now is important.
I'm sorry?
Exposing that now is important. Even though he's a judge, his past conduct needs to be exposed so people understand. And plus, the people that he wrongfully convicted, are the other 2 cases, are they still in prison?
Yeah. Barton McNeil is still in prison, and he's being represented by the Innocence Project downstate, I believe.
Okay.
And I'm not remembering the other cases right now.
I know it's an entire show we could probably do on McLean County.
But yeah, he had the same thing. He's trying to clear his name. We all know who these are. Alan Beeman was prosecuted by the same person. That's a pretty famous case. Eric Drew, his case was overturned for misconduct. They were both in McLean County. So we have 2 cases that have already been overturned due to misconduct under Charles Renard in McLean County.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we could do a whole show on McLean County. There's been just unbelievable misconduct that's already been highlighted and proven.
Mm.
Now, where can people find Jamie Snow on Facebook?
You can go to facebook.com/FreeJamieSnow. That's the page I like to get people to. That's his Committee to Free Jamie Snow page. You can do a search on Jamie Snow, and he's got another page, that comes up.
But the Committee to Free Jamie Snow page is the page where you post the updates, and that's the one you want people to go to.
Yes. And if you want to learn more about, some of the cases that we highlight, you go to JIWC, which is Justice for Illinois Wrongfully Convicted. And that's Patrick Persley, who I told you successfully.
Is that a Facebook page or is that a website?
Both. JIWC.org, and we also have a Facebook page.
Okay.
And I think that's it.
So I'm looking forward.
FreeJamieSnow.com.
It's always FreeJamieSnow.com. I'm planning on attending the hearing just to listen in and gain some insight. So I hope to see you there.
Awesome. Yes, I'll be there. I'll absolutely be there.
And I know
if anybody's listening from Bloomington that needs a ride or up in that area, please reach out to me. You can reach out to me through FreeJamieSnow.com, and we'll get you there.
I know I jumped around a little bit here tonight. I haven't done one of these shows in a few months, but I'll get back on track. I jumped around a little bit with some of the details, but you were fantastic as always.
Oh, thank you very much. We really, really appreciate you, Bruce.
And
really.
So everybody needs to go to the Free Jamie Snow page on Facebook and FreeJamieSnow.com, and then stay tuned for news following the hearing on the 12th.
Yep.
Well, all right. Thanks for joining us tonight, Tam.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. I'll see you on Facebook.
Okay. Bye.
Well, thank you for tuning in to our first show here on Spreaker. We did have a couple technical difficulties we'll work through, but I think overall everything worked pretty well. In the coming weeks, we'll be adding live call-ins for guests. We'll also be creating customized apps for iPhones and the Android phone, so I think that'll be very helpful. We also have podcasts coming from other organizations as well. that will be listed on our radio station page. So please bookmark that page and stay tuned for future developments. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Good night.